Hey everybody, it's Ron from Ron's Computer Videos, trying to do something new that I hadn't really done in the past, and that is produce Patreon exclusive content. I never really had people at this level before, so I didn't really know what I was really going to do. And I was kind of hoping that maybe people at this level would kind of guide me a little bit about things they'd like to see or stuff that they maybe wanted me to do on the channel. And so what I did is I kind of just thought about maybe share some more kind of personal, in-depth kind of things that I'm working on that may not make a regular video on the channel, but might serve as just something fun that we could kind of work on together. So why don't we go over to the bench, and then we'll take a look at something that I'm working on this evening. How does that sound? I want to share something that has kind of happened that took me the better part of, I don't know, like 2 years to kind of get all worked out. And that is, I kept purchasing, Apple made a machine that is called the LC475. And it's part of their low-cost computer series that they produced for education and stuff. The LC, it actually stands for low-cost color. I don't know. I didn't name these things, but the whole idea was to produce a line of cheap machines, and you probably have seen these before floating around. Maybe even saw one at your high school or something like that. But especially if you went to high school in the 90s, so dating myself a little bit. But the kind of the neat thing about these machines was it was a small form factor machine, high density floppy drive, color with some expandability. Apple also sold a Apple IIe emulation card for these machines that allowed you to kind of keep your old Apple II software investment alive. But here's my problem. I keep buying these darn things. And the people that keep selling them to me say, oh no, it's fully tested. Everything looks great. Just really, you can just pick it up and go on these machines. And then the problem ends up being that this is where the clock battery would normally live. And as you can see, it's missing. And all of the surrounding kind of area is damaged by the acid from the battery. So that's not good. And basically what it means is you've got a dead machine. And that's not very good. There's also some other debris and stuff inside this one. But you can see this machine has got a lot of damage to it. Now, there are some things that are salvageable. But without the main board, it's kind of pointless. So I have probably bought 4 complete machines in the last maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years. And every one of them I get is dead. And it's just so frustrating. But that's kind of part of this hobby, is dealing with sort of some setbacks and stuff on projects and stuff you might be wanting to be working on. And just can't, because you can't get whatever the part is that you need. Or you can't get some bit of technology, like a working example of something. And I guess that's just the nature of the game when you're dealing with equipment that's 30 plus years old. So let me go ahead and I'm going to pull the hard drive out of here, because I definitely won't be using this moving forward. I'd probably use a solid state replacement like a Blue Scuzzy or whatever, but we'll get that out of there. And go ahead and I'm just going to unplug everything, and then I'll tell a little story about somebody that showed me a real kindness recently. It was Garth Beagle, which you might follow him on Twitter. I don't know for sure, but real nice guy. Oh my gosh, it's funny. There's like those helicopters. So this was probably out in a barn or something like that. So, oh gosh. But anyway, we can pull the RAM out. We can pull, that's the dynamic RAM, the DRAM, like memory, like where you would execute programs. Over here is the actual like video memory. But Garth Beagle was really nice, and he actually sent me a working LC475 Quadra 605. That's what this machine is kind of also known as. Motherboard. And I really just want to test it out this evening and see if it works. I have no doubt that it does, because I think Garth also said that he had recapped the motherboard as well, just to give me the, the best start possible on this. But on these machines, there's a couple little clips on the side that you have to defeat, that then allows the board to kind of slide forward. It's really easy to snap these off just because the plastic is so brittle on some of these machines. And then there is just kind of got to get it in the right position, and then it'll lift up out of there. But as you can see, got a lot of debris on this board. A lot of little wood chunks and nasties inside here. But this board is dead. That's real unfortunate, just because the they're so hard to find. And they're getting harder to find all the time. But anyway, this one here is probably going to go in my parts pile, and maybe there might be some things that are salvageable from this in the future. But you can also see that around the capacitors and stuff, that there's a lot of damage that happened to those as well. You can see they're kind of coming apart, and that's no good. So, but on a lot of these machines, Apple used traditional electrolytic capacitors, and then did use a few tantalum capacitors as well. These will last for flippin' ever. These were put on kind of at the height of a kind of a thing where people were stealing the recipe for other people's capacitor, the fluid, or basically the electrolytic fluid inside these things. And a lot of them were just knockoffs of knockoffs, and they just didn't last very long. It damaged a lot of equipment from this era. So there's a lot of things that are just missing now, because, you know, there just wasn't good stuff on the market that and it ended up costing a lot of machines their lives. So just getting the big stuff out, and I will vacuum all that stuff up later. Okay, as you can see on the motherboard, there's also some, the EM shielding. There's also a bit of, oh man, just that little bit of touchment. But yeah, it's rust. So this would probably have to come out before anything would be permanently mounted in this case, just because you don't want to have that stuff, wreaking havoc on your motherboard in the future. So, but I'm going to test everything outside of the case tonight, just where so that way I can make sure that we're not going to short anything out or cause any problems. Probably are going to go ahead and pull the speaker as well. Speaker appears to be in pretty good shape. That'll be good for power on self-test. You can hear a little beep 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 beep, or the chime really, when the time's appropriate. But it's probably good. First things first, on any of these machines that you do, you're going to want to go ahead and test the power supply, because you don't want to use a power supply that has a bunch of over voltage outputs and nuke your motherboard. But these power supplies, this is a TDK, so this one's pretty common. There's a couple of different models of this. The output that you're going to see on this is it's written down here in the corner, says that there's +5, -5, +12. And the only ones that really need to be present and in spec, you probably want them all to be in spec, of course, but the ones that are really important are the +5 and the +12. The -5, to my understanding, was only used for like certain serial devices, like modems. And here in 2022, we're not using those so much, so it's probably not that big of a deal. I'm going to go ahead and I ran around the desk here. I'm going to grab a AC power cable. I'm going to grab a monitor as well. Probably should have grabbed this stuff ahead of time, but you know, sometimes it's more fun to do it on the fly. So I've got a video cable we can test with here. And I got a power cable there too. That's handy. Alright, so shutting the door that goes out to the other part of the basement. Alright, so what we can do, make sure the power brick is off. I've never plugged this in before. I didn't get shocked. That's always good. So let's go ahead and turn the power brick on. So this is the smoke test, just to see if anything is going wrong right here at the beginning. These two lines are ground. I believe that this is the -5, and I think one of these is a +5 and the +12. But we'll go ahead and we're going to test that out real fast just to see. Okay, I'm not seeing any voltage across the ground. That's good. 5.8. About 5.5 volts. It's pretty calm there. I don't know, can you see that on the screen? I sure hope so. Yeah, you can kind of see it. But the +5 is kind of fluctuating, but I mean, that's okay. Because it should be a tiny bit high, because once it's under a load, the voltage will go down a bit. But this is fluctuating between like 12 and all that. I mean, this machine hasn't been on in a long time, so the capacitors in this power brick or the power supply are probably not good either. And we're getting really like a low voltage on the -5 rail, but that's okay. I don't think that should be enough to hurt us this evening while we test. So let me go ahead. I'm going to turn that off and get my multimeter out of the way. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is probably a good idea on any of these things is I have a silicone mat that basically will insulate the board from any kind of static electricity that might be present here on my desk. I'll even flip it over. Make sure. I really need to kind of wipe this off. Getting a shop towel here. I love these blue shop towels. They're expensive. I think if you add it up, they're like 4 cents a piece or something. I mean, they're really pricey compared to regular paper towels, but man, they do an amazing job. Plus, this one's ready to go again for something else here in the future. Okay, so we have our power brick. Our power brick is turned off. That's always a good thing. Let's go ahead and let's grab the board that Garth sent me. And he actually put a fun note on it, which it says free Quadra 605 upgrade. The LC475 and the Quadra 605 are the same machine, but if you put this jumper on J18 on the motherboard, it will basically tell the machine to start reporting that it is a Quadra 605. So just something Apple did to just separate their market on some of those things. So, man, this board looks beautiful. So pleased that Garth sent this to me. It's really a nice looking board. And I believe he went through and he recapped it. So as you can see, you know, before where that other board had electrolytic capacitors kind of floating around in some of these places, they've all been replaced by tantalum capacitors. So this should last a good long time. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of get this all arranged where it'll be easy to kind of see what's going on. So I'm going to hook up the speaker. So if we hear anything, keep in mind on these machines that if you do not have a clock battery, they'll bong, but you won't get video. I'm going to leave RAM and VRAM out for the moment just to test. So I got my power brick in here. Get that on there. All right, let's see what happens. Okay. Well, that's good. That sound at least means it's doing something. You can trick these machines to going ahead and powering on by just doing a kind of a double tap of the power switch where you turn it off, turn it on real fast. I'm going to go ahead and hook up video now. And I'm probably going to go ahead and inspect these modules because they were in the bad board. And I don't believe them to be bad, but anything is possible. So that looks good. And I think that these are 256K VRAM modules. The VRAM module basically is like the video memory for the machine. That will basically, it controls, the more you have, I think on these machines up to 1 megabyte maybe, it just controls how many colors you get on screen. And it was kind of a big thing back in those days. 256 colors was pretty much the standard, but if you were into any kind of desktop publishing, you probably wanted to have thousands of colors. You probably might even wanted to have millions of colors. I do not believe that this machine supports millions of colors, but it definitely supported thousands of colors, 32,768 to be exact. And that was pretty good for doing desktop publishing and stuff in those days. All right, let me go ahead. Let's power this on, and let's see if I've got a monitor over here on the side. We'll see if we get anything. Okay. No Twilight Zone theme, because on these old Macs they'll like do 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 if things are not going well. So thankfully it didn't do that. I'm not getting anything up on the monitor, so I am probably going to have to do the tap tap. So I will go ahead and power it off, power it on, power it off, power it on, and we'll see if we get anything on the screen this time. It is very possible I might have to drop a clock battery in this temporarily just to get it to the point where it will actually give us some video. But no, it went ahead and synced up the monitor, so that's good. This it sure appears like it's going to go ahead and power on. So big thanks to Garth for sending me this board. I mean, this has really been a very trying kind of thing because, you know, it's it takes a lot of effort sometimes to find some of these parts and to repeatedly keep kind of being taken advantage of. It's very disheartening. So, but the machine itself is actually I have a cursor and stuff. I don't have keyboard and all that hooked up, and it's going through and probably doing a RAM test right now. And I have the flashing floppy on the display over there. So that means that's good. That means that it's mostly okay. Now here I have a Blue SCSI, which is sort of a modern hard drive emulator. Like maybe not emulator, but definitely a modern replacement for those old mechanical hard drives, which these are failing left and right. Plus, they put a big load on your power supply versus just using a device like this. Now, these older Macs support, like machines like this support what they call termination power. So I think if this is pin 1 over here, I think like pin 50 over here or something provides terminate. I'd have to look that up for sure. That provides termination power on this. So when I turn this on, there should get a little light here on. Yep, it's kind of hidden. Sorry, I got to do the double tap to wake it up because again, it's going to have the whatever you call it. Yeah, it's not going to want to power up because it doesn't have a battery in there. But the screen went ahead and came up this time, so that's good. Oh, you can kind of see it at the edge. Maybe I can scoot it in. Yeah, you can scoot it in. That worked out pretty okay. So I can see part of the cursor over there, so I think it kind of it's displaying a little weird, but that's because I'm using a modern LCD that everything is kind of shifted. But it does appear to be booting, so that's nice. That's a cool thing. There's a lot of times where you'll spend a lot of time trying to troubleshoot some things on these that are not 100% correct. Oh, this actually has some stuff on here from another machine that I was working on trying to test out. But let me go ahead. I had a mouse here, but then it appears to be missing now. So I'll have to track down where that went. But hey, this was a success. Just getting this machine tested and maybe using some good methodology to make sure that we didn't damage anything before we could even get our machine up and running. While it is up and under load, we can also test the power supply again, just to make sure that let's see what it looks like. Yeah, we've got about 5.5 volts on the DC side, or on that. It's about 13 volts. 13.5. It's fluctuating. I may not trust this power supply. It probably needs to be recapped. So I probably would not use this one. And it's kind of fluctuating all over the place, which is probably bad capacitors. And yeah, under a load, the negative 5-volt rail is just under 5 volts. So yeah, I would say that with a good deal of certainty that this power supply probably needs to have its capacitors replaced. And that's no small feat. There's a lot of stuff that can kind of go wrong inside here. So one of my ideas that I'm going to be working on here in the next couple of weeks is a aftermarket replacement for these power supplies. So that way that or that people don't have to rely on trying to recap some of these old power bricks or these old power supplies to get these machines back up and running. So, but that was a pretty good success. A lot could have went wrong here. I'm really glad that it didn't. So I will eventually go ahead and get this in a case. I need to probably retrobrite if I can grab it here. The case itself has seen better days. It's got like some tape that was on here, and so you can kind of see what the original color might have been at one time. But it's definitely seen like it should be the color inside this little label here, and instead it's this color. And that's just the fire retardants coming up in the plastic. But I will probably go ahead and start this on a retrobrite here later this evening. Before you do that, though, of course, you could see where that battery damage, where that battery, just all the acid and the fumes and everything raised up and caused all this corrosion. You can cut this EM shielding out. As you can see, there's a lot of damage here on the side as well. Honestly, if you're just going to use this at your home and not in the business environment, the FCC is probably not going to come knocking about you taking the EM shielding out of things. But I'll go ahead and I'll get that pulled out, and I'll test the floppy drive and do some other things. But that's pretty much it for the moment. This video this content right here is going to remain exclusive for Patreon donators, and there'll probably be a point in the future where I'll use this board on another project. But tonight's video is just for us. So anyway, let's go back over to the main desk, and we'll follow up there. Hey, I just want to say thanks again for taking a few minutes out of your evening to spend it with me, of all people. I know that there's so many things that are vying for people's attention these days. I feel very, very fortunate that people would even take a few minutes out to just take a look at something that was donated to the channel, and maybe try to kind of expand the collection and do stuff. But there's a couple neat things that I've been working on recently as well. There is this TTL video adapter that I designed. I'd really like to try to get one of these in the mail for everybody that's a patron, so that way that they will have kind of a neat little doodad of something I designed. There's also the interface board that I was talking about that I want to make for the LC. I'm going to start working on that here in the next couple of days. I also want to try to make a power supply adapter for 500 series power books, because there's a lot of those that have dead power bricks, and not everybody has the technical skill or really wants to try to recap those, because you do basically have to break them to get inside, and then you're going to have to put it in a new enclosure, and gosh, what a pain in the butt. So my new design basically just lets you use off-the-shelf 16-volt 2-amp power bricks to go ahead and bring those machines back to life. So more information about that coming soon. I've got some of my technical friends taking a look at the design I came up with. It's very simple, but I just want to make sure that I haven't missed anything. So anyway, again, thanks so much for spending some time with me this evening, and we will have to do this again soon. I'd really like to start doing this as a series, because one of my patrons said, hey, isn't there supposed to be exclusive content? And yeah, there should be, but I kind of was like, I really was hoping that people would kind of say, oh, these are the things that we want to see, which might help me make better, more interesting content. But we'll see. This was maybe a good freshman effort, so we'll try. But anyway, thanks again as always, and as I always say, Apple II forever.